Watch this.
Well, it ain't dead yet. Property tax relief was passed, then it was vetoed, then it was amended, then it failed. Now it's been overridden and resurrected? We'll sort it out. Idaho's abortion laws have certainly left an impact on women seeking reproductive health care, and their doctors too, who are confused about what would make them a criminal. A new bill is trying to clarify it. We asked the doctor if it does. Greater Idaho might be a long shot, but that hasn't quieted the conversation about it for those in the middle of it. We're heading across the border to find out why the 541 wants to be part of the 208. So the transgender treatment for kids bill is headed to the governor's desk for his possible signature. Bill would likely take away. Actually, that's not kind of where we're going to talk about this first, because there's a lot going on at the State House right now. It is far from over. And today, Idaho lawmakers still working at this hour to kind of just make it through this day and even trying to make it through this whole session. But first, they're going to focus on this day. It's a whiplash day of ideas, according to Joe Paris, who's going to join me now to talk about, well, what they're talking about when it comes to property taxes, because things are kind of all over the place right now, and they're just trying to get through, well, the rest of this session. Joe?
Yeah, Brian, and you know, there's been a lot that has happened today and really over the last 48 hours, and we're going to walk you through it, because when we get the text messages from the text system from you guys at home, one of the big questions we get all session long is, what about property taxes, and is there going to be anything done on it? And we can tell you at this point, it's still up in the air. Now, there was a House Bill 292 that we had been talking to you about for a few weeks that would essentially send a lot of money to Idaho schools so that they wouldn't have to run bonds and levies, and the idea there is that if they don't have to run bonds and levies, then your property tax won't go up. Well, long story short, that was passed by the House and the Senate, and then Governor Brad Little got on his desk. He vetoed it. He had a handful of concerns with the idea there, and really what he said is that he's not sure that the numbers are going to work on this. So he sent it back to lawmakers saying, let's try again. And some lawmakers say, okay, we need to fix a few things. Others said that, well, we really need to figure out exactly how to do this correctly. So yesterday, the Idaho Senate, as we explained to you, they basically wiped everything they could, and they basically made a brand new, they made a new piece of legislation. And over in the House today, that was received. And when it was received in the House, it really wasn't received with a lot of excitement. Take a listen.
So the amendments gut the original bill and instead substitute in the body across the rotunda's quote-unquote fix for what they perceive to be a flawed House Bill 292. Again, these are hostile amendments. I would ask unanimous consent that the House not, that's N-O-T, not concur with the amendments on House Bill 198.
So the Senate's big idea to recombobulate everything, it was turned down by the Idaho House today. So what about the original idea, the one that was approved by both houses with overwhelming support, but Governor Little saw issues with? Well, that is House Bill 292, and it now has a trailer bill to clarify the problems that the governor had with it. And the trailer bill is called House Bill 376, and it clarifies that the existing intent in the original entire property tax bill will make sure that $80 million is distributed to the Transportation Expansion and Congestion Mitigation. That's the TECM fund, where a lot of money goes into it to help pay for local road projects. And there was concerns that the funding in this property tax bill would actually compromise a handful of highway projects, further creating a backlog in the state of Idaho. So Governor Little, he was really worried about that, Brian. The questions about funding and really, you know, what's going to happen there. And there was a compromise in the original property tax bill that basically said, okay, we're going to get rid of the March election dates so that they're not able to go ahead and run as many things, as many bonds and levies. So that is still part of the deal here.
To get rid of that?
Correct. So that would get rid of it. So at this point, we're keeping an eye on all things.
Wow. And that's something that the Idaho Education Association is not in favor of, getting rid of those March election days for bonds and levies to help, you know, get kids funding for schools, or at least school districts funding for schools. So we still got that to look forward to. All right. You're going to keep an eye on that. There's still some other things that kind of did happen today at the State House. Transgender treatment for kids bill is headed to the governor's desk for his possible signature. The bill would take away a parent's right to decide if their transgender teenager can get hormone therapy or puberty blockers, or even gender-affirming surgery, which, according to every doctor we've spoken to about this, doesn't happen in Idaho anyway. It would make any doctor that prescribes such a treatment a felon and subject them to 10 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. During the Senate floor debate of House Bill 71 yesterday, what they're calling the Vulnerable Child Protection Act, maybe you missed what was said by freshman senator from Caldwell.
I'm not going to read this entire thing that comes from the American College of Pediatricians. It's pretty long. I'm just going to read out a couple of things, but it says transgender interventions harm children. No evidence that transgender interventions are safe for children. So if we're going to listen to doctors, here they are. Take emotion out of it. Here's your science.
Did you catch the name of his source there? The American College of Pediatricians. Sounds pretty legit, doesn't it? Sounds a lot like the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is the leading and largest organization when it comes to children's health and well-being. But the American College of Pediatricians is not the American Academy of Pediatrics. The American College of Pediatricians is a small, like 500 members versus 67,000 members, a small politically motivated group, one the Southern Poverty Law Center calls a fringe anti-LGBTQ hate group, masquerading as the premier association of pediatricians in America.
We were founded in 2002 by a group of physicians concerned that national pediatric policy was increasingly being dictated by social agendas rather than by science, medical ethics, and the needs of children.
Think America's frontline doctors during the middle of the pandemic. The college was created because the American Academy of Pediatrics endorsed same-sex couple adoptions, and some of the college's socially conservative members didn't, and they still don't. The problem, though, the science which they refer to make a case can be considered junk science, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they've made several false claims, the college has, of transgender ideology being child abuse and homosexuality in youth being temporary. They push restorative or conversion therapy. The executive director, who you just heard from, pushes the conspiracy theory that the, quote, transgender movement is, quote, an opening for totalitarian government, end quote. Meanwhile, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the actual leading children's health association, pointed out the college's facts about youth. That campaign doesn't acknowledge the scientific and medical evidence when it comes to sexual orientation, sexual identity, sexual health, or effective health education. Several doctors, by the way, have also demanded retractions from the group because their research was misrepresented in the college's articles and blogs. Taking the emotion out of it is one thing, Senator Trakel, but claiming and citing science that cherry-picks facts to prove a point or verify a false claim isn't exactly grounded in good faith. So we'll see what happens with Governor Little, because it's up to him now to either sign it or veto it.
That is where the fear lies, is that doing our normal day-to-day job puts us at risk, that if there's a prosecutor out there who wants to get involved and say that we ended a clinically diagnosable pregnancy, having that law signed and in our Idaho code puts us all at risk.
That is Dr. Lauren Miller. She's a maternal fetal medicine expert, one of fewer than 10 we have in the whole entire state. Dr. Miller spoke with us last summer about her concerns with Idaho's abortion laws, mostly because she says the language is vague. Doctors are not sure where the line is between saving a mother's life or committing a felony. This week, Idaho Republicans tried to clear up that confusion with a new bill. But will this bill do that? Dr. Miller says the waters are still muddy. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Bills are meant to solve problems. And this week at the State House,
welcome to House State Affairs.
That means Representative Megan Blanksma introduced a new bill to clarify Idaho's abortion laws. The bill aims to draw a firm line between a legal abortion and a felony.
Yeah.
But ask Dr. Lauren Miller,
It does not.
and her patients need better answers.
It is not a job satisfier. This is what I do as a maternal fetal medicine expert, and I can't help my patients in the way that I've been trained to help them.
Under Idaho law, a doctor can perform an abortion if, quote, the abortion was necessary to prevent the death of the pregnant woman. The bill does not change this language at all.
What are those key factors that you wanted clarified?
How close to death do you need to be before you can intervene? Do you need to be exsanguinating on the floor, being coded, septic in the ICU? How close to death before you can act? We shouldn't just be talking about preventing death. That's not what we do as healthcare providers. We maintain the health of our patients. And sometimes, unfortunately, termination of pregnancy is a part of that conversation. It is the way to maintain the woman's health.
The bill explicitly lists the removal of a dead unborn child, ectopic and molar pregnancies, to not be considered abortions. But Dr. Miller says pregnancy complications are more broad than that.
A baby whose skull did not form and will not have any brain by the time of delivery. That is a 100% lethal diagnosis, and in this state, a woman must carry that pregnancy to term.
That's difficult.
Mm-hmm. And this is what I do as a maternal fetal medicine specialist. I counsel patients about complications for their babies every day and help them make decisions about what's best for their family. And right now, the only option I can give in a situation like that is traveling out of state, leaving their family, and having to spend money to travel and fly somewhere else.
Has that happened? Have you had to have patients where you tell them, here's the state law, here are your options?
Yes.
And the doctors? Some aren't far behind.
We're a really small practice in maternal fetal medicine in the state of Idaho. There's less than 10 of us practicing who are actually within the state, and 2 are already leaving as a direct result of this.
And we're already seeing the direct impact. Miller says one of these departures is partially behind Bonner General Health's decision to stop offering women's health services. The North Idaho Hospital made that decision this month, and more decisions will have to be made.
Do you think you'll ever get to a point to where maybe Idaho's not for you if this continues?
It has crossed my mind many times. We will see where the future goes.
Because this doctor has a problem.
Signify by saying aye.
And she says this bill
Opposed, nay.
just isn't the answer.
Motion is carried. It will be done.
There are portions of the bill Dr. Miller supports. That includes entitling the victim of a rape to receive a copy of their police report within 72 hours of filing that report. And the report is necessary for a doctor to provide a legal abortion for a rape. The bill, Brian, also eliminates the affirmative defense. I think I'm getting that language correct, where you're essentially all abortions are bad. You're guilty until proven innocent.
Correct.
This bill would change that to innocent till proven guilty, like any other crime.
And I think what we're learning with this and some of the transgender bills that are passing, the chickens are coming home to roost right now, and people are saying, doctors, medical experts that we rely on and will rely on are saying, not for me, we're out of here, which is sad.
That's what we've heard too so far in this specific practice.
Can only get larger. All right, thank you, Andrew. Greater Idaho, the movement to move the border and make Idaho bigger by adding Eastern Oregon. Nearly 70% of the land in the Beaver State, by the way. 11 of Oregon's 15 eastern counties have already agreed to consider this border change. The idea has made more ground in Idaho's legislature this session than in Oregon's. The joint memorial passing the House, but is now stuck in the Senate State Affairs Committee. Hasn't even gotten a hearing in Salem. But the grassroots movement isn't going away. The cultural divide between the urban West and the rural East is just too great. It's been growing for years. Our sister station in Portland hit the road to find out what's driving this movement. Here's Pat Doris from KGW's The Story.
Yeah, Eastern Oregon's filing for divorce.
Mike Slinkard is a lifetime resident of Grant County. He's also an entrepreneur and has his own bow hunting show that runs on a cable channel.
With waterfowl hunting becoming ever more popular and gobbling turkeys being the highlight of the spring hunting season, you're going to want to pay special attention to today's show. So sit back and relax and come hunting with us at Hunting with Hex.
He's convinced that most who live in Oregon's big cities have no idea how different the culture is out here.
What goes on here is night and day different than what goes on in Portland. It's a whole different experience.
Mike's world headquarters are located on a bluff overlooking the town of John Day. The walls of his office boast trophy heads, animals that he's killed as a bow hunter. He does not expect urban viewers to understand.
My grandfather and uncle actually were cattle ranchers up in the Monument area, which was North Grant County. And then my dad and his father were all loggers. So, you know, I've got kind of both sides of the spectrum for Eastern Oregon, I guess.
And you're third generation?
Yep, third generation Oregonian.
How do you feel about Oregon?
You know, up until about 10 years ago, I felt great about it. I was a proud Oregonian. You know, back in, around 2000 when we were starting my original businesses, the state was actually very, very helpful. But, you know, now, you know, to us, there's a lot of sort of craziness going on in the state. You know, we're getting laws passed that we don't agree with. We really don't feel like we have a lot of representation. You know, we're getting taxed way more than we ever have before. And as a business person, it makes it very difficult to be located here. If I didn't have my roots so deep in Grant County, I'd probably be in Idaho already, to be honest with you. But I have my elderly parents I'm taking care of here and things like that. So.
Not everyone is ready to leave.
Welcome to Prairie City School.
13 miles to the east of John Day sits the small town of Prairie City.
Okay, are you ready?
Its only school houses kids from preschool through the 12th grade.
Rectangular prism. Can we all say that?
Many love the rural culture here. Teachers are understanding about kids showing up late. Many live on ranches or farms and have morning chores. Sometimes the birth of a cow or goat makes them tardy. And there are other cultural differences from the West Side urban schools here. Livestock, including the school's cows, are not pets.
They know that those animals are going to go to a butcher shop. They know that someone's going to eat them. So it's a whole different mindset opposed to something that you'd have in your backyard, or, you know, it's just different.
Amanda Rockhill is a teacher and the leader of the school's Future Farmers of America program. Her students raise the school's cows and pigs.
It's JC's dad, the girl we just talked to. Her dad donated these 2 hogs for our program. These 2 will be butchered, and the meat will be going to our cafeteria for our entire school to eat.
The differences between Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon are many. In all of Grant County, there is just one stoplight. It's right here in downtown John Day. Kathy Gill is a server in town. She has a second job working with adults with disabilities. She loves her part of Oregon.
I honestly feel that we should just have our own Eastern Oregon. When you come over to Eastern Oregon, people say, oh, this is really pretty, it's Oregon. No, we're Eastern Oregon. That's where we're at. It's what we call it. And it's God's country. It's what we've always called it.
She's on the fence about whether she supports the Greater Idaho movement, but like many I met, she's certain that urban leaders on the west side, including the governor, do not care about East Side opinions.
I think she should come and listen to everyone and get everybody's opinions, but I still don't think it's going to change their mind. I don't. I think they take care of the city people. The votes are there. You can see it. You know, we don't have much of a say when it comes to any part of voting.
From a political perspective, she is correct that the big cities in Oregon elect the governor and other top political leaders. Take a look at the results of the 2022 election for governor. The red shows counties that voted for the Republican Christine Drazan. In Grant County, Drazan got 3,145 votes. That's 75% of all the votes cast in that county. Democrat Tina Kotek got 576 votes, just 14%. But the lopsided percentages did not matter one bit. The blue counties, with their densely packed populations, voted for Democrat Tina Kotek and made her governor. In Multnomah County alone, Kotek got nearly 266,000 votes. That's far more than the entire populations of the 8 counties considered Eastern Oregon by the state's employment department. They only have a total of 191,000 people.
So the reason we're in Eastern Oregon is to talk to people about why they're so angry about the state and that they would vote to go to Idaho if the vote was tomorrow. And how would you vote on that?
I would vote yes. I'd vote yes all day long, twice on Sunday if they let me.
Okay, now why? Let's drill into that.
Well, you know, the difference now between Eastern and Western Oregon is just so vast. I mean, I go to Western Oregon, I don't even recognize what it used to be. You know, we're conservatives over here. We are conservative thinking. We're kind of, I mean, you might call us old school maybe even, but, you know, just philosophically, we match Idaho. We no longer match Oregon. There's just such a divide.
It feels like a marriage that has been in trouble for a long time.
It really angers people because we're just not listened to. They might come and visit and see it, but they don't want to solve the issues or the problems.
Is there anything the state could do to make you feel different? What would it take?
If there was something that we could do, I think we'd be trying to do it. And I'm not sure what that is at this point. I think the divide just feels so huge. It's just like we don't agree on what's white and what's red almost, you know. We can't agree on anything, it seems like. We feel like we're divorcing the west side of Oregon, we really do. You know, and in a divorce situation, one of the first things you need to do is come to the table and see if you can patch it up. And that seems to be something that we're really lacking right now. Most people out here we just feel like the west side doesn't care. Until we can talk, it's not gonna work.
Maybe it's not too late.
So it sounds like you're frustrated, but you haven't at least given up on the possibility the relationship might still survive.
Well, if there was some effort, and I think our side would be willing to put that forth effort, but right now there's no reason. We don't feel like there's a reason for them to give effort because, like I said, it really is an us and them thing.
Okay, so that's the cultural differences between the west side and the east side of the state. And, you know, they talk about these things being very divisive. This is just the first, by the way, in several Greater Idaho stories that we're going to bring you this week. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at what could possibly be done to sort of fix this grand divide that's going on between the two sides of the state, other than splitting apart and becoming Greater Idaho. Too many text messages, not enough time. We'll get to a few of them right here, like this one here. It says, so a representatives can agree on and approve laws that affect less than 1% of the state, but can't pass a property tax bill that will affect all of Idaho. Such a waste of time and our tax dollars. Yeah, it's pretty easy to dictate what a minority class can and can't do when you're not part of that minority class. Easy to come to agreement on that one. When you need legislation to explain legislation, you have too much legislation, says Jen. Well put. That can be said about a lot of things in the legislature. Is there any wonder why Idaho has a hard time attracting doctors? Our politicians want to put them in jail for practicing medicine. It's a common refrain we've been hearing, especially over the last couple of years, based on what's been happening at our state house. We'll see if we can sort out what happens tomorrow. We'll see you then.